I rejected my tech boss's advances. He thought he could destroy my career. Within months, I dismantled his entire professional empire. My sister sent me a screenshot of his LinkedIn, unemployable. When I first started at Thomson Global, I thought I was living my dream. A tech startup that prided itself on innovation, diversity, and cutting-edge solutions. I was Sarah Chun, 28, the daughter of immigrants who'd sacrificed everything for me to have a shot at success. My parents ran a small dry cleaning business, working 7 days a week, and I was determined to make every opportunity count. The company was everything Silicon Valley promised: open floor plans, free kombucha, those ridiculous beanbags that nobody actually sits on. I'd landed a coveted position in their data analytics department after graduating top of my class from UC Berkeley. My thesis on predictive algorithms had even caught the attention of some industry leaders. This wasn't just a job. This was my ticket to changing everything for my family. Mark Reynolds wasn't just my boss. He was the golden boy of Thomson Global, a 45-year-old tech veteran who'd built his reputation on turning startups into tech empires. Charming, connected, the type of guy who could close million-dollar deals over lunch and make it look effortless. Everyone wanted to be him or be close to him. The first few months were a blur of late nights, breakthrough projects, and the kind of professional excitement that makes you forget about sleep. I was leading a team developing an AI-driven marketing prediction tool that could revolutionize how companies understand consumer behavior. My parents would call, and I'd talk about work with a passion that made my mom's eyes light up. "Look at you," she'd say. "Living the American dream we never had." But something was always a little off with Mark. The casual touches that lingered too long during team meetings. The way he'd always find reasons to keep me late, scheduling one-on-one strategy sessions that felt more like personal interviews. I was raised to be professional, to not make waves. My parents had drilled into me that opportunity was fragile, that one wrong move could destroy everything. It started small. An invitation to drinks, to discuss the project. A text message after hours that felt just slightly too personal. I was always polite but firm. Thanks, but no thanks. I'd seen enough workplace dynamics to know how quickly things could go sideways. The night everything changed was a Thursday. We were launching the final phase of our AI marketing tool, a project I'd spent the last 8 months developing. The entire team was running on caffeine and pure adrenaline. Mark called me into his office after everyone else had left. "Incredible work, Sarah," he said, standing too close. The office was dark, just the city lights filtering through the floor-to-ceiling windows. "I think we should celebrate. Just the two of us." I knew that invitation. I'd seen it before. Not just in tech, but from my mom's stories about working in factories, from my aunt's whispered conversations, from every woman who'd ever had to navigate a professional world designed to protect men like Mark. "Thanks," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "I appreciate the offer, but I'd like to keep our relationship professional." The change was instantaneous. His smile didn't drop, but something in his eyes went cold. Like a switch had been flipped. I had no idea then how completely he was about to try to destroy me. The first signs were subtle. So subtle that I almost convinced myself I was imagining things. My project updates started getting lost in email chains. Meeting invites were mysteriously delayed. The AI marketing tool I'd spent months developing suddenly became under review by a committee that hadn't existed before. My team started looking at me differently. Whispers in the break room. Awkward glances. Something was changing, and I knew exactly who was pulling the strings. 2 weeks after I rejected Mark's advances, I was called into an emergency meeting with HR. Rebecca Martinez, head of human resources, had this look that told me something was very wrong. "Sarah," she began, her voice carefully neutral, "there have been some concerns about your recent performance." I knew exactly what was happening. Mark was systematically dismantling everything I'd worked for. The evidence was mounting, but I needed to be smart. Careful. One wrong move and I'd lose everything my parents had sacrificed for. My performance metrics, once stellar, were being subtly manipulated. Project milestones I'd completed were now marked as incomplete. Emails documenting my work were mysteriously deleted. It was a surgical takedown, and Mark was the surgeon. The team I'd built, the colleagues I thought were my friends, started distancing themselves. Jason, my lead developer who'd worked closest with me, wouldn't even make eye contact in meetings. I could see the fear in his eyes, the unspoken understanding that associating with me could mean professional suicide. My phone started blowing up with missed calls from my parents. They could sense something was wrong. How do you tell immigrant parents who worked their entire lives for this moment that everything is falling apart? Everything's fine, I'd tell my mom, forcing a smile she couldn't see through the phone. Just going through some work stuff. But it wasn't fine. Not even close. Mark was doing more than trying to push me out. He was trying to destroy my entire professional existence. And the worst part? He was doing it so carefully that nobody could point to direct evidence of harassment or retaliation. I started collecting everything. Every email. Every missed meeting invite. Every subtle manipulation. I might have been under attack, but I wasn't going to be a victim. Not this time. Not ever. By the time 3 months had passed, I was nearly unrecognizable to myself. My once promising career at Thomson Global had been reduced to a series of performance improvement meetings. My groundbreaking AI marketing tool was buried so deep in bureaucratic red tape that it might as well have never existed. Mark had orchestrated a symphony of professional destruction so precise it was almost beautiful in its cruelty. I'd lost my team. Jason, my lead developer who once called me the most brilliant data analyst he'd ever worked with, now avoided me like I was radioactive. The other team members followed suit. In the cutthroat world of Silicon Valley, association was a death sentence. My savings started dwindling. Rent in San Francisco isn't cheap, and tech jobs aren't handed out like participation trophies. Every interview seemed to end the same way: polite smiles, careful language that said everything without saying anything. "We'll be in touch" became the most terrifying phrase in my vocabulary. My parents tried to help, but I couldn't bear to tell them the full truth. My dad would call, his voice hopeful. "Any good news, Mija?" And I'd swallow the lump in my throat and lie. "Working on some exciting opportunities," I'd say, knowing each lie was another brick in the wall of shame I was building. Social media became a minefield. LinkedIn connections dried up. Former colleagues who once celebrated my achievements now acted like I'd never existed. Mark's influence ran deep, and in tech, reputation is everything. The breaking point came during a coffee meeting with my old mentor, Dr. Elena Rodriguez. She'd been the one who recommended me for the Thomson Global position. Now, she looked at me with a mixture of pity and disappointment. "What happened, Sarah?" she asked, her hands wrapped around a cooling latte. "You were the most promising analyst in my entire department." I wanted to scream, to explain the calculated destruction Mark had engineered. But in that moment, I realized something crucial. Nobody would believe me without proof. My phone buzzed. Another rejection email. Another door closing. But behind that disappointment, something else was growing. A quiet, burning determination that would make Mark wish he'd never crossed me. I wasn't finished. Not even close. The public library became my war room. Every day after my increasingly rare job interviews, I'd spend hours researching. Not just about Mark, but about Thomson Global. About tech industry dynamics. About workplace harassment laws. My laptop would be surrounded by legal pads filled with meticulously organized notes. I discovered something interesting. Mark wasn't just targeting me. He had a pattern. 3 previous female employees had mysteriously disappeared from the company in similar circumstances. Each brilliant. Each had rejected his advances. Each had their careers systematically dismantled. But none had ever spoken out. My Aunt Mai, a retired lawyer, taught me one crucial lesson growing up: evidence is everything. I started reaching out. Carefully. Professionally. Created a private LinkedIn group. Crafted messages that wouldn't trigger any harassment flags. Used professional language that spoke to shared experiences without explicitly accusing anyone. The responses didn't come immediately. But they came. First, a cryptic message from Jessica Martinez, a former data scientist who'd left Thomson Global 2 years ago. Then Elena Rodriguez, a UX designer who'd mysteriously resigned after reporting inappropriate behavior. Then 3 more. Each story was painfully similar. Mark's charm. The subtle professional undermining. The complete destruction of their careers. But this time, things would be different. I wasn't just gathering information. I was building an airtight case. Mark had no idea he was walking into a trap. Thomson Global was preparing for its annual Tech Innovation Conference, the biggest event of the year. Investors, tech journalists, potential clients would all be there. Mark was scheduled to present the company's newest developments, including the AI marketing tool I'd originally created. My research had uncovered something critical. The tool he was presenting? Virtually identical to my original design, but without my name anywhere on it. I started making strategic moves. Quiet. Calculated. My compiled evidence went to 3 key places: the company's board of directors, a specialized tech industry legal firm specializing in workplace discrimination, and a respected tech journalism platform known for investigative reporting. Each document was meticulously prepared. Emails showing progressive marginalization. Performance reviews that mysteriously changed after my rejection. Testimonies from previous victims. Financial records showing a pattern of suppressing female talent. Mark thought he was untouchable. The golden boy of Thomson Global. Charismatic. Connected. The type of executive who could charm his way out of anything. But he didn't know I'd been studying his every move for months. The first crack appeared during an internal review. A junior developer, emboldened by the growing documentation, mentioned discrepancies in the AI tool's original design credits. Small things. Almost imperceptible. But in the tech world, such details matter. Mark's confident swagger started to show the first signs of strain. The annual tech conference was like a powder keg waiting to explode. Mark strutted onto the stage, wearing an expensive Tom Ford suit, looking every bit the tech executive. Behind him, a massive screen displayed the AI marketing tool, my tool, as if it were his singular creation. But I'd prepared. I'd sent carefully crafted emails to key tech journalists, academic researchers who'd published work in similar domains, and several influential tech bloggers. Each email contained breadcrumbs of evidence. Not enough to be a direct accusation, but enough to spark curiosity. During the Q&A session, a journalist from TechCrunch asked a seemingly innocuous question about the tool's original development. Mark's smile flickered. Just for a moment. But I saw it. Fascinating development, the journalist said. Could you elaborate on the initial research phases? Specifically, the team composition. Mark's response was textbook corporate speak. Smooth. Deflective. But something had changed in the room's atmosphere. Another journalist followed up. Then another. By the third question, Mark's perfectly rehearsed presentation was starting to unravel. I sat in the back of the conference hall, watching. Not with anger. Not with revenge. But with a cold, calculated precision. The dominoes were about to fall. The tech industry is a small world. Especially in Silicon Valley. Rumors spread faster than server updates, and reputations can crumble in hours. Within 48 hours of the conference, my carefully laid groundwork began to bear fruit. The emails I'd strategically sent found their mark. Tech blogs started asking questions. Not loud accusations, but precise, surgical inquiries that made Mark's narrative start to crack. First came the internal investigation. Thomson Global's board, known for protecting their own, couldn't ignore the mounting evidence. The AI marketing tool's true origin was becoming impossible to hide. My original design documents, meticulously preserved, told a story Mark couldn't talk his way out of. Jessica Martinez, one of the previous victims I'd quietly connected with, came forward. Then Elena Rodriguez. Then 2 more women whose careers Mark had systematically destroyed. Each story added another layer to the growing narrative. Social media exploded. LinkedIn became a battleground of professional whispers. Former colleagues who had been too afraid to speak suddenly found their voices. Screenshots of old emails. Archived performance reviews. The digital breadcrumbs Mark thought he'd erased were suddenly everywhere. Thomson Global's stock began to shift. Investors don't like scandal. They especially don't like potential lawsuits that could expose years of systematic misconduct. Mark's power was crumbling, and he didn't even see it coming. The lawsuit hit Thomson Global like a tactical nuclear weapon. Our legal team, which I'd carefully selected with the precision of a chess grandmaster, filed a comprehensive complaint. Not just against Mark, but against the systemic culture that had protected predatory behavior for years. The document was a masterpiece of legal strategy. Each allegation backed by documented evidence. Email trails. Performance records. Testimonies from multiple women whose careers had been systematically destroyed. The press descended like vultures. Major tech publications that once celebrated Mark as an industry golden boy now ran expose after expose. Tech's toxic culture exposed, read one headline. Sexual harassment and career manipulation at Silicon Valley's darling company, screamed another. Mark's network began to disintegrate. Speaking engagements cancelled. Board positions rescinded. The powerful men who had protected him for years now saw him as a liability. During a particularly brutal board meeting, I was invited to present our case. Not as a victim, but as the architect of Mark's professional destruction. This isn't about revenge, I said, my voice calm and steady. This is about accountability. The board members couldn't meet my eyes. They knew exactly what had been happening under their watch for years. By the end of the week, Mark was not just fired. He was radioactive in the tech industry. The settlement was more than just financial compensation. It was systemic change. Thomson Global was forced to implement comprehensive anti-harassment training. Independent oversight committees were established. My original AI marketing tool, now fully credited to me, became the cornerstone of a new company initiative focused on workplace equality. I used part of the settlement to establish a foundation supporting women in tech who had been systematically silenced. Each scholarship would come with a simple message: your voice matters. Your work matters. My parents cried when I told them everything. Not tears of pity, but of pride. My mom, who had worked countless hours in that tiny dry cleaning business, hugged me so tight I could feel generations of silent resilience. You did what we never could, she whispered. The tech community's response was unexpected. Speaking engagements started pouring in. Conferences wanted me to talk about workplace dynamics, about standing up, about turning systematic oppression into meaningful change. Mark? Last I heard, he was working a mid-level sales job in a small town, his once golden reputation reduced to a cautionary tale whispered in industry circles. But this wasn't about him anymore. This was about every woman who had been told to stay quiet, to accept, to disappear. I wasn't just surviving. I was thriving. The final chapter of this story isn't about Mark. It's about me. About resilience. About transformation. A year after everything happened, I stood on stage at the Women in Tech conference. 500 women looking up at me, hoping, waiting. My parents were in the front row, my dad wearing the only suit he owned, my mom clutching a handkerchief. Success isn't about revenge, I told the audience. It's about creating the space you were always meant to occupy. My new company, Catalyst Technologies, was nothing like Thomson Global. We prioritized talent over politics. Merit over manipulation. Every hire was a statement. Every project a revolution. The AI marketing tool that Mark tried to steal? It revolutionized how companies understand consumer behavior. Major tech giants were now licensing the technology I'd created, that he tried to erase. My phone still occasionally lights up with messages from women in similar situations. Each one gets a personal response. Each one gets hope. Mark thought he could break me. Instead, he made me unstoppable. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying someone else. It's building something so incredible that their attempts to hold you back become nothing more than a footnote in your success story. I never looked back. Not once.